My name is Selena Parrott. I'm 28 years old, and until recently, I thought I was in a stable, healthy relationship. For 8 months, I'd been living with my boyfriend Stefan in a cozy, two-bedroom apartment downtown. We split everything: rent, utilities, groceries. We even argued like a couple that had already been married for years, which back then I found kind of comforting. That illusion shattered one Tuesday night, halfway through a bowl of pasta. Stefan had cooked his version of romantic dinner, meant opening a jar of pesto and pretending he'd made it from scratch. He looked nervous, tapping his fork against the plate. "Babe," he said lightly so, "there's something I need to tell you." I remember glancing up, expecting something mundane like, "My mom's visiting." Instead, he smiled almost sheepishly. "Clara's going to stay with us for a month. Don't make it weird." At first, I thought I'd misheard him. "Clara," I repeated. "As in your ex-girlfriend, Clara?" He nodded. "Yeah, she's between places right now. Her lease ended and her new apartment won't be ready for a few weeks. I told her she could crash on our couch." I froze my fork halfway to my mouth. "And you told her this when?" "Last week," he said, like it was no big deal. "She's been going through a rough patch. I didn't want her to feel stranded." I forced a laugh, dry, brittle. "So you decided this went solo without even talking to me?" Stefan rolled his eyes. "Come on, Selena, don't make it a thing. She'll be on the couch. It's temporary. You trust me, right?" That word trust burned like acid. I set down my fork slowly. "I trust you," I said carefully. "But that's not the point. It's about respect. You can't just move your ex into our apartment without—" He cut me off with a sigh. "See, this is what I mean. You're making it weird. You always overthink things. Clara and I are friends. We ended on good terms." My heart started pounding, but not from anger yet. It was the quiet kind of hurt, the one that made your chest feel hollow. "Stefan, friends or not, this affects me too. I live here. You didn't even ask." He leaned back, crossing his arms. "I'm discussing it with you now." The way he said it, so dismissive, so casual, something inside me cracked. I realized this wasn't a discussion. This was him informing me. I stared at him for a long moment. His face looked so certain, so self-righteous. Then something in me shifted, a kind of calm, cold clarity. "Okay," I said quietly. He blinked. "Okay. Yeah, you're right," I murmured. "I should be more mature about this." Stefan smiled, relieved, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand. It really means a lot that you're being cool about this." "Cool. Sure. Ice cold, actually." I smiled back faintly, but in my head, the wheels were already turning. That night, while Stefan was in the shower, I sat on the edge of our bed laptop, balanced on my knees. I searched for flights Bangkok, Chiang Mai, Phuket, anything far away. When he came out, towel around his waist, humming to himself, I was staring at a one-way ticket to Thailand leaving in 5 days. It was impulsive, expensive, reckless. But the thought of spending a month watching my boyfriend play host to his ex made my stomach twist. If he could make unilateral decisions about our home, then so could I. I opened a new tab, typing room for sublet. 1 month, fully furnished. Female tenant preferred, $800. Within an hour, 12 responses flooded in. I scrolled through them, filtering out the weird ones, until I found a message from a man named Jordan. Early 30s, recently divorced, needing a quiet place while sorting things out. Respectful tone. Cash up front. Perfect. I didn't tell Stefan. He was too busy the next few days texting Clara, making lists of her comfort foods and buying her favorite brand of coffee pods. He remembered her favorite coffee, but had forgotten my birthday last month. Each night, I'd watch him from the kitchen window, reflection his smile growing warmer every time he said her name. And that quiet hurt in my chest, it was turning into something else. Something colder. The night before my flight, he poured wine, acting cheerful. "I really appreciate you being so understanding, Selena," he said. "Clara's like family, you know." I smiled faintly, swirling the wine in my glass. "Of course," I said. "Actually, since you'll both need some space, I figured I'd give you that." He frowned. "What do you mean?" I set down my glass. "I'm leaving tomorrow. Thailand. Month-long trip. Already booked." His expression shattered into confusion. "You're what?" "Going to Thailand," I repeated softly. "And don't worry, I already found someone to cover my rent while I'm gone." Stefan's face went through 6 shades of panic, confusion, disbelief, anger. "You rented out your room to who?" I shrugged. "Don't make it weird," I said, meeting his eyes. "Either you trust me or you don't." He opened his mouth, closed it, then pointed at me. "That's not the same thing, Selena. No, I said, standing up calm as a knife. It's exactly the same thing. I walked past him to our bedroom, zipped my suitcase shut, and whispered the same words he'd once used on me. Be mature about it. The next morning, while he was pacing by the kitchen, my Uber arrived. I wheeled my suitcase to the door just as the bell rang. Jordan stood there, tall, neatly dressed, polite smile. Hey, ready to move in? Stefan's jaw dropped. Stefan, I said pleasantly. This is Jordan. He'll be staying in my room while I'm gone. Rent's paid in full. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed, notification, Clara. On my way. Can't wait to see you. Stefan's face drained of color. I grabbed my suitcase, looked him dead in the eye, and said, enjoy your month. Then I walked out, leaving him standing between his ex at the door and my replacement tenant in the hallway. Through the cab window, I saw him running out to the balcony, phone in hand, shouting my name. I smiled, turned my phone to airplane mode, and leaned back in the seat. If he wanted freedom, he just got it. The plane wheels lifted off the runway, and for the first time in months, my chest didn't feel tight. As the city lights disappeared beneath the clouds, I thought about what I'd just done and how strangely right it felt. People always say revenge is messy, but what I felt wasn't revenge. It was balance. Stefan had made a decision without me, one that invaded my space, my peace. I'd simply mirrored it back to him. By the time the plane landed in Bangkok, my phone was vibrating like crazy. 47 missed calls, 22 messages, 3 voicemails that all started with, "You can't be serious, Selena." I smiled, turned the phone off, again, and stepped out into the warm, sticky air of Thailand. The smell of street food, the chaos of scooters zipping past, it felt like stepping into a different life. That first night, I wandered through a night market drinking coconut juice and watching a fire dancer move like he owned the night. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel small or careful or overreacting. I felt free. Back home, though, that freedom came at a cost, one I didn't know about until 2 days later. The first message came from Jordan, the tenant who'd moved into my room. Jordan text, "Hey, Selena, things are a little tense here. Your boyfriend's acting weird. Also, some woman named Clara showed up earlier than expected. Just thought you should know." I chuckled out loud at the cafe table. The irony was delicious. Me. Yeah, that's Stefan's ex. Long story. Just be respectful. Keep to your room and don't engage too much. Jordan. Copy that. Though she already tried to tell me to use the other bathroom. Me typing, use whatever you paid for. I could practically imagine Stefan's face when both Clara and Jordan started unpacking in the same morning. Still, there was a part of me, the old caring part, that felt a twinge of guilt. What if this blew up worse than I expected? Then again, he hadn't thought twice about how his decision made me feel. 3 days into my trip, I was sitting in a temple courtyard in Chiang Mai writing postcards when Jordan texted again. Jordan landlord came by. He's furious. Said no subletting without written permission. Also, your boyfriend is arguing with him while the ex is making tea like she lives there. This is chaos. I laughed so hard I almost got shushed by a monk. Me. Thanks for the update. Stay out of it if you can. Jordan. Already trying. But your guy keeps saying it's not my fault, she's the one who left. Me classic. That night I got curious and reactivated my social media. Bad idea. There it was, a post from Clara's best friend Denise, captioned, "When insecure women run away instead of trusting their men, toxic energy isn't cute." Dozens of comments followed, strangers defending Stefan, calling me dramatic, even suggesting Clara was a better fit. And yet I noticed something odd in the photos. In one story, Stefan and Clara sat side by side on the couch, her hand resting a little too comfortably on his knee. So much for, she's just staying temporarily. I closed the app, took a deep breath, and let the anger dissolve. If they wanted to play house, they could. I wasn't coming back early to stop them. A week passed. I'd learned how to ride a scooter, gotten lost in a floating market, and made friends with a backpacker from Scotland named Holly. She listened as I told her the whole story one night over cheap cocktails. When I finished, she tilted her head and smiled. "So you didn't run away," she said. "You gave him what he asked for, just not in the way he expected." That line stuck with me. Maybe that's what maturity actually looked like, walking away, not to punish, but to protect your peace. Meanwhile, the drama back home reached new heights. Jordan began sending voice notes now because, as he said, this is too good not to document. Jordan Voice Day 8. Your boyfriend and his ex are fighting about rent. She says she's not paying because she's a guest. He says you're the one responsible for the landlord's anger. Also, your ex-boyfriend's ex just used my coffee mug. The disrespect. Another message followed 5 minutes later. Jordan. So, they're fighting again. He's shouting that she led him on and she's crying, saying, "This isn't what I wanted. I'm eating cereal while they self-destruct." 10/10 entertainment value. I couldn't help it. I laughed so hard that everyone at the hostel turned to look. Bad news, Holly asked, smiling. Quite the opposite, I said, wiping a tear. It's like reality TV, except I'm not the one getting humiliated this time. That night I lay awake listening to the hum of the ceiling fan. Somewhere out there, Stefan was probably yelling, Clara was crying, and Jordan was minding his own business with a bowl of cereal. And me, I was thousands of miles away feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I understood what it meant to stop fighting for people who refuse to meet you halfway. Sometimes walking away is the confrontation. Still, I couldn't help wondering what I'd come home to. Would they still be living together pretending nothing happened? Would the landlord evict them both? Would Stefan realize what he'd lost or keep blaming me for everything? Whatever the answer, I decided I didn't need to care. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, half laughing, half proud, let them deal with their own mess. I've already packed mine. By week 2, my Thailand trip had settled into a rhythm of calm mornings and chaotic messages. Every sunrise began with jasmine tea on the balcony, and every night ended with a new episode of Stefan and Clara's disaster, narrated by Jordan. The first sign that things were truly unraveling came in the form of an email. Subject urgent. Lease violation from Richard landlord. I opened it, half expecting spam. But there it was. Selena, I need you to call me immediately. There are unauthorized tenants in your apartment. This violates your lease agreement. Eviction proceedings will begin if this is not resolved within 48 hours. I leaned back in my chair at a cafe in Phuket and laughed quietly. Unauthorized tenants, plural. I typed a reply. Hi, Richard, I'm currently traveling. I sublet my room temporarily to cover rent while I'm away. My boyfriend Stefan invited his ex-girlfriend to stay without asking me first. I made my own arrangement. Jordan is reliable and paid up front. If there are concerns, please speak with Stefan, as he initiated the situation by inviting his ex to live there. It was petty, but accurate. Richard's reply came an hour later. Both names are on the lease. Both of you are responsible. No subletting without written permission. The unauthorized man must vacate immediately. I smirked and typed back, which unauthorized person, the paying subtenant or the ex-girlfriend staying rent-free? After that silence. The next morning, Jordan sent another message, breathless and half amused. Jordan, your landlord came again, lost his mind. Apparently both Stefan and Clara pretended not to know what was going on. He yelled about eviction and stormed out. Also, the ex walks around in a robe now. I'm living in a sitcom. Me, keep the door locked and document everything. Jordan already on it. I started filming. If I told anyone this story, no one would believe me. He wasn't wrong. That afternoon, I got tagged in a story by Denise again. This time, a picture of Clara crying on the couch captioned, "Some men can't handle a strong woman with empathy for her ex." The comments split into two camps, half calling me insecure, half asking why Clara's ex was living there in the first place. One read, "Imagine inviting your ex to stay with your boyfriend." Girl, that's wild. Exactly. Later that night, my phone rang a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Selena, you need to come back now." Stefan's voice was frantic. Why, I asked, sipping my drink. "Richard is evicting us. This is serious." "Oh," I said mildly. "Because of me?" "Yes, because you rented out your room illegally." I tilted my head, even though he couldn't see it. "And what about Clara? Does the lease cover bringing exes home for month-long sleepovers?" "That's different," he snapped. "Different how? She's a guest. Sounds like a tenant to me." He exhaled sharp and angry. "You're being ridiculous." "No," I said quietly. "I am being consistent. You started this. I just followed your example." There was a pause. Then, in a lower, almost trembling tone, he said, "I'm going to lose my apartment because of you." I smiled faintly. "No, Stefan. You're losing it because you thought you could have both me and her without consequences." He cursed under his breath and hung up. An hour later, Jordan texted again. "Jordan, so the police came." My heart skipped. "Me, what, why?" "Jordan, Clara called them. Said there's a stranger in her home. I showed them the rental agreement you signed. They laughed. Said it's a civil issue." Landlord looked ready to explode. "Me and Stefan." Jordan silent, just pacing. "Oh, and Clara, she's packing." Me leaving. Jordan, not yet. Just moving her things into your old closet, like marking territory. I groaned, unbelievable. Jordan, honestly, I feel bad for your landlord. 2 days later, another email from Richard. I have reviewed the situation. Both tenants violated the lease. You have 30 days to vacate. Eviction process begins immediately. 30 days. Our lease gone. Part of me felt bad for Jordan caught in the crossfire, but he handled it better than either of us. Jordan, the landlord. Just delivered the papers in person. Clara cried. Stefan yelled. The ex finally packed her things. Said this was too much drama. She's gone. Gone. I reread that word several times. Gone. Hours later, another message from Jordan. Jordan. Your ex-boyfriend's ex left. He's sitting in the living room staring at the wall. I think it's finally hitting him. Also, thanks for the entertainment. This has been enlightening. I texted back one line. Glad you got your money's worth. He replied. Worth every penny. Divorce was boring compared to this. That night, lying under the warm Thai air, I realized how poetic it was. Stefan had tried to make me feel small, unreasonable, jealous, immature. Now he was alone in a half-empty apartment, the lease destroyed, his ex gone, and his reputation in shambles. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. You just need to step aside and let it unfold. I turned my phone off, rolled over, and whispered to myself, let him clean up the mess he created. When the 30 days were up, I flew home. I'd finished my diving certification, eaten my way through every night market I could find, and even spent a quiet week in Chiang Rai where no one knew my name. For the first time in years, my life had belonged entirely to me. I didn't tell Stefan I was coming back. I wanted to see what remained. The Uber pulled up in front of our old building just after sunset. The air was thick with humidity, and the sight of that balcony, the one I used to water plants on, hit me with a strange wave of nostalgia and relief. I climbed the stairs, heart steady but curious. My key still fit. The door clicked open. Silence. The apartment looked hollow. Half the lights burned out the walls bare where photos used to hang. Boxes stacked in one corner. Everything of mine packed neatly labeled in angry handwriting, Selena's stuff. I set my suitcase down and noticed 2 envelopes on the counter, one thick one folded and taped shut. The first was from Stefan. Selena, I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything over your stupid ego and jealousy. Clara was just a friend who needed help. You turned it into this circus. Because of your illegal subletting, we got evicted. I had to move back in with my parents at 26. Do you know how humiliating that is? By the way, your precious Jordan wasn't so perfect either. He was going through a divorce because he cheated. Great judge of character, huh? The landlord threatened to sue us both, and I lost everything because of your lesson. Don't contact me again. We're done. I can't believe I wasted almost 2 years on someone so immature and petty. P.S. Clara and I aren't together. So congrats. You ruined my relationship for nothing. I stared at the letter for a long moment. He still didn't get it. He still thought this was about jealousy, about punishment. He had no idea it was about respect. The second envelope was from Jordan. Hey, Selena, had to leave early. Landlord started getting legal, and my lawyer advised me to move out. But, your ex is something else. She tried to seduce me to make you jealous, as showed me the text she planned to send you. When I refused, she called me a creep. Also, for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. The guy was in way over his head. Watching them self-destruct was like a live morality play. If you ever write about this, at least change my name. P.S. The ex-boyfriend came back twice trying to comfort her. She turned him away both times. Maybe you actually did her a favor, showed her what kind of man he really is. Good luck with everything, Jordan. I couldn't help laughing. Not bitterly, not angrily, just freely. The whole thing was absurd, like watching a film I'd already seen, but this time I was finally sitting in the director's chair. I looked around the apartment one last time. The faint outlines of old picture frames, the tiny dent in the floor from where I'd once dropped a candle holder. All of it echoes of a life I'd already outgrown. My laptop still sat on the counter, dusty but intact. I powered it on. 30 minutes later, I had a new address for myself, a small studio across town. Expensive, yes, but quiet, untouched, mine. As I packed the last box, I found a photo in one of the drawers, me and Stefan smiling in front of a Christmas tree, his arm around me. Behind us, Clara's name was scribbled in permanent marker on one of the gift tags. It was almost poetic. I tore the photo clean in half and dropped it into the trash. Over the next week, I moved into my new place. It was smaller, just one room and a tiny balcony, but the air felt different, lighter, safer. Friends reached out with fragments of gossip. Apparently, Stefan was now living with his parents, telling anyone who'd listen that I ruined his life. Clara had posted a healing journey series on Instagram, all vague captions about reclaiming self-love. And Denise, she'd stopped talking to Clara after trying to let her move in, only to have Clara bring drama to her apartment too. Karma was doing her job beautifully. One evening, sitting by my window, I drafted a message, but not to Stefan. It was to myself. A note titled, "What I Learned." Sometimes love fails quietly. Not because of betrayal, but because of disrespect disguised as reason. If someone tells you not to make something weird and it's already weird, that's your cue to stop pretending. Respect doesn't demand trust, it earns it. And walking away isn't immaturity, it's clarity. I closed the laptop, let out a slow breath, and looked around the quiet studio. No drama, no exes, no noise. Just peace and the soft sound of my own life restarting. Weeks later, I bumped into Holly, the Scottish backpacker, at a coffee shop downtown. She was in transit passing through after visiting Vietnam. When she saw me, she grinned. "So did you ever get your apartment back?" I smiled. "No, but I got something better." She raised her cup. "Freedom." I clinked mine against hers. "Exactly." That night, I posted something simple to my private journal account. When people cross your boundaries, you don't need to shout. Just close the gate and let them find out what it feels like outside. No hashtags, no anger, just truth.